Vivid verses.
The dishwasher had 3 minutes left on its cycle when Cam told me she wanted to see other people. I was standing at the counter portioning out the chicken thighs I'd marinated that morning, and I remember the specific sound the dishwasher made, a low, patient hum, almost a purr, the kind of sound you stop noticing until something else in the room snaps your attention, and the hum becomes the only steady thing left. The knife was still in my hand. I've been halfway through trimming fat off the second thigh. "I want to talk about something," she said, "and I need you to actually hear it before you react." I set the knife down. Not dramatically. I just didn't want to be holding a knife for this conversation, whatever it was. I wiped my hands on the dish towel hanging from the oven handle and turned to face her properly. She was sitting at the kitchen table, both hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had probably gone cold an hour ago because she'd been nursing it since dinner prep started and hadn't taken more than 2 sips. "Okay," I said. "I'm listening. I've been thinking about this for a while. Not as a reaction to anything you've done. This isn't about you doing something wrong." She said this carefully, like she'd rehearsed the framing, which told me she had. "I think I want an open relationship. Or, I want us to be open. Both of us. Not just me, though I'll be honest, I think it's more something I want than something I expect you to want equally." The dishwasher clicked into its final rinse. I noticed that. I noticed the small mercury-colored light on its display panel, the way it reflected off the cabinet door. "Define open," I said. "Seeing other people, sleeping with other people, potentially. Not abandoning what we have. I want to keep this. I want us to still be us, just expanded. A lot of people do this successfully. I've been reading about it. How long have you been thinking about this? Does that matter? It matters to me whether this is a new thought or an old one you're finally saying out loud." She looked at the mug instead of at me. "A few months. Maybe longer if I'm honest about when the thinking started versus when I let myself name it. I felt something drop in my stomach, a small elevator car lurch, but I want to be precise about what it was. It wasn't shock, not really. It was the sensation of a guess being confirmed. I noticed her phone face down more often. I noticed a runner's high after gym sessions that didn't quite match the cardio. I hadn't said anything because I don't accuse people of things I can't substantiate, and because some part of me, I think, had been waiting to see if she'd bring it to me herself rather than let it calcify into something I'd have to dig out. "Okay," I said again. "Keep going. Tell me what you're actually proposing, not just the abstract version. I want to be able to date. See people. Maybe sleep with them, if it's right. I'm not talking about randomness, like apps and strangers. More like, if there's a connection with someone, I don't want monogamy to be the thing that closes that door before I even get to look through it. And me, you could do the same. I'd want you to. It wouldn't be fair otherwise. I'm not asking if it would be available to me. I'm asking what you actually want from me here. Do you want me to be enthusiastic about this? Tolerant of it? Indifferent? I want you to be open to it," she said. "I want you to try." I pulled out the chair across from her, not next to her, across, because I wanted to see her whole face while she said whatever else she had to say, and sat down. The chair legs made a short scrape against the floor tile, and I remember thinking distantly that I should get those rubber pads for the chair feet, the kind that stopped that sound. A small, irrelevant thought arriving in the middle of something large. That happens to me. The mind keeps doing its filing even during an earthquake. "What happens if I say no?" I said. "Not as a threat. I'm asking what you've already decided happens in that case, because I don't think you'd be having this conversation without an answer to that question already sitting in your back pocket." She didn't answer right away. The tea steam had stopped rising from the mug. It really had gone cold. "I don't want to frame it as an ultimatum," she said. "I'm not asking how you want to frame it. I'm asking what the actual structure is. If you can't do this, if you absolutely can't, then I don't think we can stay together as we are. I'm not saying I want to break up. I'm saying I don't think I can keep doing monogamy forever. And if that's a hard no for you, We'd have to talk about what that means for us. So it is an ultimatum. You've just dressed it as a negotiation. That's not fair. I'm not being unfair. I'm being accurate. A negotiation is when both outcomes are acceptable to the person proposing it, and the only question is terms. You've told me there's an outcome you won't accept, staying as we are, indefinitely, with no expansion. So this isn't two people negotiating where the line goes. This is you telling me where your line is and asking whether I'll move to meet it. She set the mug down harder than she probably meant to. A little tea slopped over the rim onto the table, a small dark continent spreading on the wood. Neither of us moved to wipe it. "Why are you doing the lawyer thing right now?" she said. "I'm trying to be honest with you about something hard, and you're cross-examining the grammar of it." "I'm not cross-examining the grammar. I'm trying to understand the actual shape of what's being asked of me before I respond to it, because I think you want me to respond to the soft version, the version where this is just an idea we're exploring together. And I don't think that's the version that's actually on the table." "What version do you think is on the table?" "I think the version on the table is, you've already decided you want this, you've probably already started moving toward it in small ways, and now you're presenting it to me as a joint decision because you'd rather have my consent than my absence. But the actual decision was made already. What's being negotiated isn't whether this happens. It's whether I come along." Her jaw tightened. I watched it happen, a small muscular flex at the hinge there, and then smoothed over. "That's a hell of a thing to accuse me of." "I haven't accused you of anything. I've told you what I think is true. Tell me if I'm wrong." She didn't tell me I was wrong. I want to be honest about what was happening inside me during the part of the conversation that came next, because the version I gave her, calm, measured, a few clarify questions, was real, but it wasn't the whole of what was happening. There's a particular kind of stillness that comes over me when something large is confirmed, a stillness I've had since I was young, since long before Cam. It isn't numbness. It's more like the moment right before you step onto ice you already suspect won't hold. Your body goes quiet and exact because every motion now matters. I felt the loss already, somewhere under my sternum, a heaviness that had nothing to do with logic and would still be there no matter what I decided. I let it sit there. I didn't let it drive. "Can I ask you something?" I said, "and I want you to actually answer it, not redirect it." "Okay. Is there someone specific?" I'm not asking for a confession. I'm asking whether this is theoretical or whether this is downstream of something that's already started." She was quiet long enough that the answer arrived before the words did. "There's someone I've been talking to," she said. "Nothing's happened. I want to be really clear about that. Nothing has happened physically. But I like him, and I didn't want to lie to myself about that anymore. And I didn't want to lie to you either, which is why I'm telling you now instead of letting it happen quietly and explaining it later." "What's his name?" "Does it matter?" "No, I don't need it. I was checking whether you'd give it to me, which tells me something about how transparent you actually intend to be going forward, whatever going forward ends up looking like." "His name's Theo. We met at the running club." "It's not. Theo's not the reason for any of this. He's just the occasion of it. I'd have gotten here eventually even without him." "I believe that," I said, and I did. "I don't think this is really about him." "Then what is it about in your version?" "I think you've wanted more room for a while, and you've been waiting for permission to want it, and meeting someone gave you a reason to finally say it out loud, instead of just feeling vaguely suffocated and not knowing why." Her eyes went wet, fast, the way they do when something lands closer to true than a person wants. That's not fair, framing it like I'm suffocating because of you." "I didn't say because of me. I said you felt suffocated. Monogamy itself can do that to a person regardless of who the partner is. I'm not taking it personally. I'm just naming what I think is actually going on, because I'd rather respond to the real thing than the cover story." "You're so calm," she said, and it didn't sound like a compliment. "I just told you I'm attracted to someone else, and you're sitting there doing emotional architecture." Do you feel anything? I feel plenty. I'm choosing not to perform it for you right now, because I don't think performing it would get either of us anywhere useful. You'll see what I feel and what I decide. That's always been true of me, and you've known that about me for 3 years. Maybe I don't want stoic right now. Maybe I want you to actually react. I am reacting. This is what my reacting looks like. I'm not going to manufacture a different kind of reaction because you'd find it more satisfying in the moment. She pulled her knees up onto the chair, wrapping her arms around them, a posture that made her look younger than 31, younger than the woman who managed a department of 11 people and didn't flinch in meetings. I don't want to lose you over this, she said. I want you to know that. This isn't me trying to get rid of you. I love you. I just also want this other thing, and I was hoping there was a way to have both. I know you weren't trying to get rid of me. I don't think you're a bad person for wanting this. I think a lot of people want this, honestly, and for some of them it even works. I just don't think it works for me, and I knew that about myself a long time before I met you. You haven't even tried it. How do you know it doesn't work for you if you've never done it? The same way I know I don't want to live in a different country or have children or believe in an afterlife. I don't need to run the experiment to know what's true about myself on certain things. This is one of those things. I'm not telling you that to win an argument. I'm telling you because I think you deserve the actual floor I'm standing on, not a soft maybe that gives you false hope I might shift. So that's it. You're just done? Right now at this table? I haven't said I'm done. I've told you where I stand. You asked me a direct question about whether I could do what you're proposing, and I gave you a direct answer. What happens next is a separate question, and I think it's one we should both sit with rather than decide in the same 10 minutes. The dishwasher beeped, 3 short tones, cycle complete. Neither of us moved to open it. She tried again 2 days later in the car on the way back from her sister's place. I was driving. She had her knees against the dash in a way that always made me tense up a little, an old habit of mine about car safety she'd never fully respected, but I didn't say anything about it that night because there were larger things occupying the space between us. I've been thinking about what you said, she said, watching the street lights slide across the windshield, about how I already decided before I told you. I don't think that's fully fair. I think I was scared to bring it up, and so it took me a long time to work up to it, and that probably looked like I'd already decided, but it wasn't a done deal. It still isn't. I want you to know there's room here. Room for what specifically? For us to figure this out together. Maybe it doesn't have to be the full thing I described. Maybe there's a version that's smaller. We could talk to someone, a therapist who works with this stuff. There are people who specialize in exactly this. I'm not opposed to therapy as a general practice. I'm telling you that I don't think therapy is going to change what I already know is true about what I want, which is monogamy, specifically with you, or not at all with anyone. That's not a negotiating position I arrived at carelessly. It's just where I am. You sound so sure. How can you be that sure 2 days after I brought this up? Because I didn't arrive at it 2 days ago. I arrived at it years before I met you, the same way you arrived at wanting more room years before you met me. We're not negotiating from the same starting line, Cam. You're trying to move me from a position I've held for a long time, and I understand why you'd hope it's movable, but I don't think hoping changes what's actually there. So what, we just end it? 3 years, and we just end it because you won't even try. I'm not ending it because I won't try something. I'm ending it, if it ends, and I think it will, because you've told me you want something I'm not willing to provide, and you've told me that not providing it isn't an option you're willing to accept long-term. Those are your terms, not mine. I'm just the one being honest about not meeting them, instead of pretending I might eventually if you push hard enough. That's a really clean way of making this entirely my fault. I haven't said fault. People want different things sometimes. That's not a moral failure on your part. It also isn't one on mine for not being willing to want what you want. She was quiet for a long stretch of road, long enough that I thought the conversation had ended for the night. Then, softer, I don't actually want to lose you. I keep saying that, and I don't think you believe me. I believe you don't want to lose me. I think you also don't want to lose the other thing. And I think when you actually sit with both of those wants side by side, you're hoping I'll be the one who bends so you don't have to choose. I understand the hope. I just don't think it's going to resolve the way you want it to. She didn't answer. We drove the rest of the way in silence that had a texture to it, dense and gray, like a fog that had gotten into the car with us and was sitting in the back seat, patient, waiting to see who'd speak first. Neither of us did, until we pulled into the driveway, and she said, very quietly, "I'm not trying to hurt you." And I said, "I know." And that was the whole conversation, start to finish, 11 words at the end of a 15-minute silence. My friend Owen came over that Thursday with a six-pack he didn't open because I told him on the phone I didn't really feel like drinking, and he respected that without making it a thing, which is one of the reasons Owen and I have stayed close since university. He sat on my couch with his elbows on his knees and listened to the whole account. The kitchen conversation, the car conversation, the general shape of where things stood, without interrupting once. "Can I say something you're not going to like?" he said when I'd finished. "Go ahead. I think you're being a little rigid about this. I'm not saying you're wrong to not want an open relationship. I'm saying, have you actually let yourself feel anything about this? Or are you just doing the thing you do where you process it into a clean decision and skip the part where it's supposed to hurt?" "I felt it," I said. I felt it the moment she said it. I'm not skipping anything. I'm just not narrating it to her in real time, because I don't think that would help either of us. "Okay, but are you narrating it to anyone? Me, your mom, a journal, whatever? Or is it just sitting in you doing nothing?" I considered the question honestly, because Owen's the kind of friend who deserves an honest answer rather than a defensive one. "It's sitting in me," I admitted. "I haven't cried about it or anything like that. I don't know that I will. That's not me performing toughness. That's just an accurate description of where I am. I feel a loss. I feel it most when I think about specific things. The way she laughs at her own jokes before she finishes them. This stupid little thing she does with her socks where she balls them up instead of folding them. And I used to find it endearing instead of annoying. I feel that. I'm not made of stone. I'm just not going to let the feeling override the decision, because the decision isn't actually that complicated underneath the feeling. She wants something I can't give her. That's the whole fact. Everything else is just texture." Owen nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I think you're right that it's not really negotiable, if it's the kind of thing you're describing. I just don't want you to be so busy being right that you forget to also just be sad for a while. Those aren't opposites." "I know they're not opposites," I said. "I'm allowing both. I'm just not going to perform the sadness for an audience, including for you. No offense. None taken. You've always been like this. Honestly, it used to worry me more before I understood it wasn't repression. It was just your particular shape. You feel things on a different schedule than the rest of us, and you don't need the schedule to match everyone else's to be doing it right." That landed in a way I didn't expect it to. I didn't say anything for a moment, and Owen, to his credit, let the moment exist without trying to fill it. "Do you think she'll actually leave?" he asked eventually. "Or do you think she's hoping you'll fold?" "I think she's hoping I'll fold. I don't think she's leaving in the sense of having one foot out the door already. Not entirely. I think she's hoping there's a version of this where she gets to keep both me and the new room she wants. And I think she believes if she keeps presenting it gently enough, eventually I'll decide the room matters less than keeping her. She's not wrong that I love her. She's wrong about what I'll trade to keep that. And if she does leave, actually leaves, not just threatens it, then she leaves. I'm not going to chase a door that's already open. I'd rather know now what she actually wants than spend 2 more years finding out by inches." The text started arriving in earnest the following week, after a third kitchen conversation that covered the same ground with diminishing patience on both sides. I'm not going to reproduce all of them, because most of it was repetition, but a few exchanges mattered. "Cam, I talked to my mom about this. She thinks you're being unreasonable. She said no one expects total transparency anymore. Lots of couples do versions of this quietly. Me, I'm not interested in your mom's opinion on my boundaries. I'm interested in yours. What do you actually want, separate from what would be easiest to justify to other people? Cam, that's such a cold thing to say about my mom. Me, it's not cold, it's just not relevant. Bringing her into this doesn't change what's true between us. It just adds a third person agreeing with you in a room I'm not in. She didn't respond to that one for almost 5 hours. When she did, it was a different register entirely. Cam, I want to see a therapist. Just once on my own. She said relationships that survive things like this usually do it because both people get curious instead of defensive. She said you sound defensive. Me, you can tell your therapist, who has met me exactly 0 times, that I'm not being defensive. I'm being clear. Those aren't the same thing, even if they can look similar from outside. Cam, you're impossible to argue with. You always have an answer for everything. Me, I'm not trying to win an argument. I think you're trying to find an angle that gets a different answer out of me, and I understand why, but the answer is not going to change based on which angle you find. There was a 4-day gap after that exchange. During it, I did ordinary things. I went to work. I cooked, mostly for myself, smaller portions than I was used to. I noticed I've been making meals size for 2 out of habit and had to consciously scale them down, a small daily reminder of where things stood that I didn't ask for and couldn't avoid. I told my mother, briefly, on a Sunday call, that Cam and I were going through something serious, without giving her the specifics, because I didn't think the specifics were hers to carry, and because I wasn't ready to make this fully real by saying it out loud to a third person who'd asked follow-up questions I didn't have answers to yet. You sound calm, my mother said. Are you actually calm? Or is that just your phone voice? I'm actually calm, Mom. I'm sad. But I know what I think is right here, and once I know that, the calm tends to follow on its own. It's not a performance. I've never once doubted that about you, she said. Even when you were small, you decide something was over. A friendship, usually when you were a kid, and you wouldn't make a big scene about it. You just quietly stop including them. It used to worry your father a little, how final you could be. I always thought it was just clarity. Some people need the scene to know it's real. You've never needed that. Is that a compliment or a warning? Bit of both, probably, she said. Just don't let the clarity turn into coldness. Love. There's a difference, even if from the outside they can look the same. Cam came over on a Saturday afternoon, unannounced, which she'd never done in 3 years together. We'd always texted first, out of mutual respect for each other's space that I'd thought was foundational to us. She stood on the step when I opened the door, and I noticed she'd dressed carefully in a way that read as an attempt rather than an accident, and something in my chest went tight and brief, a small contraction, gone almost as soon as I registered it. Can I come in? She said. I don't want to do this on the step. I let her in. We sat in the living room this time. Not the kitchen, her on the armchair, me on the couch, the coffee table between us like a small demilitarized zone neither of us crossed. I want to withdraw it, she said, without preamble. The whole thing. The open relationship idea. I've been thinking about it nonstop for 2 weeks, and I don't want to lose you over an idea. I'd rather have you and not have the other thing than have the other thing and not have you. I should have said that from the start instead of presenting it like a real option. I let that sit in the room for a moment before I answered, because I wanted to be sure I was responding to what she'd actually said and not to the relief that wanted to leap up in me at hearing it. I appreciate you saying that, I said. I do, but I don't think it's that simple anymore, and I want to explain why, rather than just accepting it at face value. Why not? Isn't this what you wanted? Me, choosing you, no open relationship. What I wanted, I said carefully, was never really about the open relationship itself, not primarily. The open relationship was the specific shape this took, But the actual thing that mattered to me was what it revealed, that when you wanted something I couldn't give, your instinct was to present it as a negotiation and see if I'd move. And what you're doing right now, withdrawing it under the threat of losing me, is a different version of the same instinct. You're not telling me you've changed what you want. You're telling me you've recalculated the cost of keeping what you want against the cost of losing me, and the math came out the other way this time. That's not fair. People are allowed to reconsider things. They are. And if you come to me and said, I sat with this and I actually don't want it the way I thought I did, I want monogamy with you and I understand that now, that would be a different conversation. But that's not what you're telling me. You're telling me you still want it. You've just decided you want me more today in this moment with this particular fear of losing me sitting right in front of you. That's not the same as the thing actually changing in you. It's just the scale tipping under pressure. And scales that tip under pressure tip again when the pressure changes. Her eyes were wet again, and this time a tear actually slid free, and she didn't wipe it immediately, which told me something about how unguarded the moment was for her. So nothing I say can fix this. You've already decided. I decided 2 weeks ago what was true for me. I haven't moved off it because nothing you've said since has changed the actual fact on the ground, which is that you want a kind of relationship I'm not built for and don't want to be talked into pretending I'm built for. I'm not punishing you by holding that. I'm just not willing to perform a flexibility I don't actually have, even to keep you, because I think that would be worse for both of us long-term than an honest ending now. I don't understand how you could be this sure. I'm not this sure of anything, ever. I know, I said, and I meant it gently. That's one of the real differences between us and probably part of why this is happening at all. You move toward what you want by testing the edges of things. I move by already knowing where my edges are before I get close to them. Neither way is wrong. They just don't fit together here. She put her face in her hands for a moment, not crying exactly, more like gathering herself. When she looked up, her voice had changed register again, gone harder. So we're actually doing this. We're actually breaking up over something I didn't even act on. I didn't sleep with anyone. I told you the truth before anything happened, and you're still leaving. I'm not leaving because of what you did. I'm responding to what you told me you want and what you told me you wouldn't accept not having. Those words came out of your mouth, not mine. I believe them when you said them. I don't think it's fair to ask me to unbelieve them now because you're frightened of the consequence of having said them. That feels like you're punishing me for being honest. I understand why it feels that way, but I'd rather you be honest and lose me than dishonest and keep me. And so would you, if you actually think about it instead of just feeling the fear of this moment. You told me something true about yourself. I'm taking it seriously. That's not a punishment. That's respect, even if it doesn't feel like it from where you're sitting. She left an hour later, without resolution exactly, though something in the air between us had shifted from negotiation to something closer to acceptance, even if neither of us said the word. The calls from her sister started after that. Mara had always been kind to me, genuinely, not performatively, and I could hear in her voice on the phone that she wasn't calling as an ally trying to win me back to Cam's side. She was calling because she was worried about both of us and didn't know what else to do with that worry except spend it on a phone call. She's a wreck, Mara said. I'm not telling you that to guilt you. I just don't think you understand how badly this has hit her. She thought you'd at least fight for it. She didn't expect you to just agree to the ending. She said it was like watching you close a laptop. I understand that's how it looked to her, I said. I wasn't trying to make it look easy. It wasn't easy. It just didn't require the kind of fight she was expecting because I wasn't fighting for the relationship as it currently is. I was deciding whether I could live inside the relationship as she wanted to remake it. And the answer was no, and once that answer was clear, there wasn't a version of fighting that would have changed it. Fighting works when there's a position to fight for. There wasn't one here that I could occupy honestly. Do you still love her? The question landed somewhere true, and I didn't flinch from it. Yes, that's not in question. Loving someone and being compatible with what they want aren't the same thing, though. I think people conflate those a lot. I haven't. Is there really nothing that could change your mind? If she wanted more therapy, if she really sat with it. Mara, I appreciate that you care about both of us. I do. But I'm not going to keep relitigating this with every person who calls on her behalf. I gave her my answer directly, more than once, with real care. If she has something new to say to me, she can say it to me. I don't think it serves anyone for this to keep arriving through other people. There was a pause, and then, more quietly, "That's fair. I'm sorry. I just hate seeing her like this. I know. I don't take any pleasure in any of this either, for what it's worth." The final attempt came nearly 3 weeks after the original conversation, by text, late on a Tuesday night. "Cam, I keep thinking about the version of us where I never said anything. We were happy. I ruined it by being honest. I think about that a lot. Me, you didn't ruin anything. You told me something true about what you wanted. If you'd never said it, we'd still be together, but it would have been built on something that wasn't fully true, and I don't think either version of that is better than this. Cam, would you ever come back? Not now. Just someday. If things were different." I sat with that message for a long time before answering. I want to be honest that there was a pull in me towards softness, toward leaving a door cracked open the way people do when they want to be kind without being honest. I didn't do that. I don't think so. Not because I'm angry or because I want to punish you or because I don't think you could change. I just think once I know something clearly about what I need, going back into a situation that already proved it couldn't hold that need doesn't make sense to me, even with time past. I'd rather both of us build something real with other people than keep a door open on something I've already understood the shape of. Cam, that's so final. It is. I think you deserve final. Actually, instead of maybe that just keeps this unresolved for both of us. You'll find what you're looking for. I don't think it was ever really me you were testing this on. I think you were testing whether you could be loved while also being someone who keeps growing, and the honest answer is yes, you can, just maybe not by someone who's built the way I'm built. That's not a flaw in either of us. It's just a mismatch we found out about the hard way. She didn't respond to that message. I didn't expect her to. Some messages aren't actually asking for a reply. They're asking to be the last word in a particular chapter. And I think, on some level, we both understood that's what this was. 3 weeks later, on a Thursday evening, I stood at the same kitchen counter, portioning chicken thighs into containers, smaller batches now, a habit fully adjusted rather than grieved. The dishwasher hummed through its cycle behind me, the same low, patient sound, indifferent to everything it had been present for. I'd given away the chair with the scraping foot, sold it, actually to a couple from an online listing, replaced it with one that sat quieter against the tile. My phone buzzed once on the counter. I glanced at it, a message from Owen asking if I wanted to get dinner Saturday, nothing urgent, and I finished sealing the last container before I picked it up to answer. I typed back a short yes, set the phone face down, and locked it without checking anything else. Then I went back to the counter, wiped it down, and started on dinner.
Thanks for listening.